Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Schwartz on Sports here on sports.com. I'm your host, Peter Schwartz. We'll be with you every Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, talking to you about the entire world of sports. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to be talking to the commissioner of the Arena Football League, Jerry Kurz. They're in their second year of existence after taking a year off when they went out of business after the first 22 years of the league. So we'll talk to Jerry, see where that league is. In a few moments, we're going to be talking to Kevin Mawae. He is the president of the NFL Players Association. Of course, the NFL is currently engaged in a lockout, a big labor mess that is going on right now. We want to welcome in our first guest of the night, as I mentioned, the president of the NFLPA. He is a former longtime setter in the National Football League, Kevin Mawae. Kevin, Peter Schwartz, how you doing? Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Kevin. Thanks a lot. You know, there was a very, very short list of people I wanted to have on as the first guest on the show, and you were the one who made the cut. So I hope you're happy with that.
Well, I appreciate it very much, man. I just knowing you and having known you over the past, I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate it, Kevin, and obviously I got a chance to know Kevin during his time with the Jets. But Kevin, let's obviously get to the business at hand, and that is the current labor situation in the NFL. And I know there's rhetoric going back between both sides. The blame game is going on. The players are blaming the owners are blaming the players. But in a nutshell, for yourself as the head of the Players Association, are you surprised in a $9 billion industry that we're currently in a work stoppage?
Well, I am, to be quite frank with you. I think the unfortunate part about this is the management let us know 2 years ago that they were going to opt out of the deal. So we knew we were headed to this point in this situation back in 2008. The fact that we couldn't get to closer terms during the mediation is disappointing, especially being the fact that we were there for 16 days. We met a total of 8 hours FaceTime with people that were able to make decisions in the room. And that's the frustrating part. And then to have to hear the commissioner himself and Jeff Pass come out and blatantly lie about what happened in those mediation processes is even more frustrating, because I was there. We had somebody in those rooms, and we know exactly what happened and the tone and the delayed tactics that they gave us for 16 days. And so it's highly frustrating to me to have to hear them give their side of the story knowing it's complete fabrication.
Kevin, I want to get to that last day of mediation, because a lot of people put the blame on the players for that last day. A lot of fingers are pointing towards the players for walking out of the room on that last day of mediation, then decertifying, and then the NFL put the lockout into effect. From your perspective, take us through that last day, the events that happened, and even talk about the whole situation with Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, because there were reports that he was the one who initiated getting up off the table. What exactly happened that day?
There were two separate incidences. The incident concerning Jerry Jones actually happened the week before, and before we gave the 24-hour extension in the first place. That was on a Wednesday, because I flew into D.C. for that day of mediation when the CDC was there. And basically, Jerry Jones said, it's obvious that we're not getting your attention and you're not getting our attention, so maybe something needs to be done to get somebody's attention. And he bust his fists together and pounded them together and sat at the edge of this table and said, maybe we just need to do something to get you guys' attention. He gets up, gets ready to walk out of the room, and Robert Kraft grabs his arm and stops him. And he kind of pulls his arm away, thinking, we were under the impression that he was trying to get the rest of the CEC to walk out with him, and they didn't. The reason why they didn't, because we were giving them information that their bargaining unit had not given to them in the previous 2 years. And so they sat there and listened to it, because they've been told for the last 2 years that they got 70% of every dollar of new revenue since 2006. And that statement was only true if they take out $1 billion that they get off the top before they split the pie. And that's something that Jeff Pash and Bob Batterman and their economic gurus weren't telling the CEC and the owners. So they were operating on the premise that they were only getting 30% of every dollar that was being paid in the NFL since 2006. That was a lie. And it was the first time that they heard it, that it only counted that way if you dismissed $1 billion that they get off the top. So that was the week before. So then on Friday or the Thursday of that week is when we went to mediation for the whole day. It was stall, and we got the economic parts of it, and the number they wanted to use was that 141 cap number. Well, if you back out the benefits, which means our post-career benefits and health care and things like that, that number would have been 114 or 124, something like that.
Right.
So it was less than what the cap would have been in 2008, which meant players would have to get cut or take pay cuts to fall under the new cap that they were proposing. And it was like 20 minutes or 10 minutes before the end of the day, and Judge Doty in Minneapolis was waiting to hear what was going to happen.
Right.
And they were flustered in their own room, and the EC on our side said, we're done, we're tired of these tactics, we need to go to the next step, which was the possibility of decertifying. Roger came out of office and said, we need 24 hours because I have to get permission to extend. And so we got 24 hours to make your phone calls, and then we'll figure out if we're going to extend from there. Right. And we did. But now we have 6 more days, 7 more days. And in that week, I was not there Monday, Tuesday. I came in Wednesday, Thursday, left Thursday night. And then the mediation continued on Friday. In the 8 hours, I was there Wednesday, Thursday, or one of those 2 days. I was there for 8 hours one day, 8 hours met, and 16 hours of mediation. We met face-to-face with their bargaining unit for a total of 30 minutes.
Why was that, Kevin? Why was that?
We were going through proposals, and when we started talking about the economics again, we were told, well, let us go to a caucus, meaning let's go so we can go talk to our people and that kind of thing. And so they left the caucus 3 hours. And then at the end of the day, it's 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. And so we ended the day and come back the next day, and instead of bringing our entire contingency to the mediation building, we brought Morris Smith, myself, and a couple of our attorneys. And we sat in a boardroom for 8 hours. And not one time did we see anybody from their side of the table. And so I left. I went out of town. My kid's birthday was that weekend. Some other EC members were there on our side. And eventually their CEC shows up, and it was the same process. They were there all day long, never once met with the CEC. On that last day, they never met face-to-face one time. Sometime after lunch, they dropped the proposal on the table, and it was a take-it-all-or-none proposal. And, again, the economics were messed up. The 10-year proposal, yeah, we'll give them that. And then they wanted to sell that they were going to give us lifetime medical, which is a farce. The stipulations were that as long as you were not working in another job, then we would offer you lifetime COBRA insurance. But once you took a job that had health benefits, you lost it, and if you lapsed, you could not get back into the program.
So if you became a broadcaster in the NFL after your playing career is over, and let's say Fox offered you insurance, you couldn't get those benefits from the NFL.
Absolutely, that's exactly what they were offering.
Kevin,
Kevin, it goes back to 141. There was a cap number which would bring you back down to 2006 or below that numbers. And then they're saying you're going to make $20 billion as a whole over the next 4 years. Well, that $20 billion, what it would have done is get us back to where the numbers were in 2008.
The thing and we're talking to Kevin Mawae, the president of the NFL Players Association here on Sports.com. Kevin, the owners painted the picture that you guys were not willing to negotiate. In fact, Roger Goodell, the commissioner, has stated numerous times since the lockout started that this was not going to be settled in litigation. It was going to be settled in negotiation, and they're ready to negotiate. Did you ever get the feeling during those 15, 16 days of mediation that the owners really wanted to negotiate?
When we went into mediation and things started getting down to the end, where we ended up at towards the end of mediation was where we were 2 years ago.
So nothing changed.
For them to sit there and say they wanted to get something done in 16 days, they had 2.5 years to get something done. and then they're going to push it all off until the last 16 days of mediation. I understand that things happen on the 11th hour and the 12th hour of the clock, but you don't put a 150-page proposal that's an all or none and then say this is a great offer when we, in fact, economically, it's the worst offer that they've ever given the NFL players.
Kevin, let's go back to 2006, and obviously the owners agreed to that deal in 2006, and 2 years later they decided to opt out of it, saying that they didn't think it was a good deal. Why do you think they agreed to that deal in the first place in 2006?
Because they knew how good the NFL was. They knew how much money the NFL was going to bring in. And, the problem that they had then and they still have now that they will not address publicly because it knows it'll tear them apart is that they didn't want to do revenue sharing back then because Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder's of the world didn't want to keep dragging along Ralph Wilson and Mike Brown, those lower tier teams. But part of that stipulation, and Gene Upshaw made it be a point, that the only way we'll get this deal done is if there is revenue sharing like it's always been. In addition to that, the money that the players haven't been getting a part of, we want part of that too. The concessions and the parking and things like that we weren't getting a part of in the last defined revenue system. And so, I made comments that, it was a great deal for us. Well, it was, because now we're getting, we started getting money from revenue streams that we weren't getting money from before. But the deal was still the same. We were still getting 59% of what it was termed total football dollars. Well, that total football dollars excluded a $1 billion skim off the top.
Right.
And
well, the owners want that. The owners want that to be $2 billion now, right?
Yeah, they want it to be $2 billion, saying that so that we give recognition for costs that they would incur to grow the game. And we've agreed, there's stadium issues, and you need to build a new stadium and things like that. That we understand that these are indeed costs that help build the game. That we would give dollar recognitions for those. But what we did say was that we do not understand how you're going to ask for the rising cost in players or the players' cost and everything associated with players without showing us where you're spending your money at. Because the reality of it is the players' percentage has been flat since 2006. The cost might have went up, but the percentage that they're paying the players hasn't. And so that tells us that they're spending their money somewhere else,
right? And
they want the players to make up for it. Now, where they're spending the money, we know what they're making. Yeah, everybody does. It's $9.6 billion or $1 billion. But where are they spending that money? And the problem is you have 32 teams that have 32 different ways of doing their business accounting. So the money's it's spent in different ways in different areas. So where employee benefits or employee salaries might be huge on one end because an owner's taking $4 million a year for being the owner, the owner's not taking that or they're taking even more.
Right.
And so the biggest problem is that they don't trust. It's not that they don't trust the players with the information that we get. I firmly believe that they're afraid to show the other owners what they're going to get, what they're doing with their money, because then they'll find out how much they're screwing each other.
Well, Kevin, the league, the owners, they've said that they've been willing to turn over financial information to you. You guys are looking for financial transparency. What exactly is the Players Association looking for in terms of information from the league, and what is the league willing to show you right now?
Well, we sent a letter to Roger Goodell in 2008 before we even had our first official bargaining session, and we asked for full audited financials for every team in the NFL. And initially what they gave us is one page, 8 by 10 of aggregated numbers,
right?
Which meant nothing to us. It just said team travel. Well, does that team travel to games? Does that include the owner traveling to his owner's meetings in his private jet? Does that mean you're sending the advanced team to go find a hotel the next season? That kind of stuff. And so that was a number that they meant nothing to us. It's just a blob, basically.
Right. And
so then the information that they agreed to give us during the mediation process was two numbers: how much they were making and how much they were spending, and that was it. Just two numbers, and that's not fully audited financials. That's not what we asked for. So when they said we turned over some numbers. Well, yeah, you turn over numbers, but our economic specialists and our experts say the numbers they were giving us to get the information that we need to make a fair deal was useless and pretty much the garbage numbers. And so that's not us saying that. That's these economic professors and experts that said the numbers that they're giving you are absolutely useless for the information you need to bargain in good faith.
Well, Kevin, some of the teams have come out and said that they would be willing to open up their books completely, whatever you guys want to look at. So it appears to me, at least, that these teams are not on the same page. If some teams say they're willing to open up the books and some teams are not, what does that say about the way that the league is trying to get this deal done?
Well, I think what it says is that there's 32 teams that not all of them are in agreement. And they might not be coming out as owners and speaking out publicly or whatever, but it does go to show you that not every team thinks alike at times. But what they are more interested in doing is protecting the shield and protecting the NFL. But we're at a point now. They had their opportunity. For 2.5 years, they had an opportunity to bargain in good faith, and they chose not to. And so we, by the right that was actually in the last CBA, decided to decertify, which gave us the best opportunity for our players to be on the field.
Right.
So we decertified as a union, not to say, hey, NFL, this is what we're going to do to you. It's so our players can go back to work. It's the only way possible that we would have been able to file an injunction to stop the lockout. So when our fans want to know why did you guys decertify as unions, because we want to play football in the fall. And in order to do that, we had to file for an injunction to stop the lockout. We'll hear about that next week when we go to court.
We're talking to Kevin Mawae, the president of the NFL Players Association here on sports.com. Kevin, let's talk about that hearing. You will go before the federal judge in Minnesota. You're hearing with the owners. You guys are asking for an injunction to end the lockout. Tell us what that will mean if you guys win that injunction. I would think the owners will probably appeal, and I think if the owners won, the players would appeal. But if you guys win the hearing, what does that mean? Does that force the league to open back up? Does that mean that there'll be a 2011 season?
Well, what it does mean is if the judge, it does give us the injunction and the players are able to, that means our players can go back to their facilities and start working out as a team immediately. Mm-hmm. And obviously they'll file an appeal, and I'm sure the appeal will have something to do about, have something to do with, if we appeal it, then the lockout stays in effect until the hearing or whatever. But ultimately, an injunction will allow the players to get back to the locker rooms, get back to their teams, their team facilities, and start working out again and start making money again. And right now, the players get $140 a day for each day that they work out and things like that. And we all understand that the lockout part of it financially is where, if this thing drags on through the summer and into the season, then everybody knows the players don't get paid their playing salary until the first week of the regular season. So, there's a minimal loss now during the off season and through the beginning of September, and then the heavier losses come in the lockout financially for players if you go into a season during the lockout. But the whole point of the injunction is to stop it so our players can go to work. And if they lift it completely, then we go into the season, and then we'll have to figure out what kind of system we would be playing underneath once you get into the regular season.
Kevin, with regards to that hearing, Jaguars owner Wayne Weaver told a Florida newspaper the other day that he was pretty confident the owners would win that hearing, and there's been a lot of rhetoric going back and forth about that. What did you think of what Wayne Weaver had to say, and how confident are the players that you guys will win that injunction?
I don't believe the players would have went in this direction if we didn't feel like we had some very solid legal ground to stand on. We didn't want to get to this point, but it is the point that we had to get to protect the game and protect the business of football. And whether it's Weaver or Irsay or whoever wants to talk, I know I was in the meeting rooms and I was at bargaining, so I know what happened. Right. And Weaver wasn't there, and Irsay wasn't there, and Jerry Jones hasn't been in bargaining session, and none of those guys have been in bargaining session. So, it's kind of ironic that all of a sudden they want to speak out on what's going on when they had no voice during the bargaining process and they weren't sitting at the table across from our side. So, we'll see what happens, and I'm glad they feel confident about it, but we certainly believe that the law is on our side.
Kevin, a couple of final things. The NFL draft is coming up starting on April 28th for 3 days. There's been a lot of talk going back and forth that the top draft eligible players are going to be coerced by the Players Association not to show up. You guys recently announced that you were going to have your own event to coincide but not go directly up against the NFL draft. What exactly are the plans for the Players Association, and will there be pressure put on any of those draft-eligible players not to show up at Radio City Music Hall?
Well, anytime that the players do something for other players is to showcase them and give them an opportunity to get in front of the fans and things like that. I know there's going to be some community service events that they'll be able to take part in, and they'll be celebrated by the Players Association and as future stars of the game. And as far as I know there's things going on leading up to and after and over the weekend after the draft for those guys. But in no way have we ever said, don't go to the draft. We just want them to consider the fact that they'll be shaking hands with the guy that's preventing them from making a living. But at the end of the day, it's a special weekend for them. Whether they cross that stage or not, and they do get drafted, it's a culmination of for a lot of those guys, a lifetime worth of work and a dream come true. And they'll be welcomed with open arms by the players in the locker room today. And and certainly we feel and hope that they'll be leaders of the players in the future. So it'll be different. It'll certainly be different than what it has been in the past. But hopefully it'll be a positive experience for the players.
Kevin, last question is multiple choice. In 2011, there will be no NFL football. In 2011, there will be some games missed. Or in 2011, there will be a full 16-game NFL season. What are we going to see?
Can I pick B and C, a combination of the two? Is it an either or? I think that that there's the ability to get a full season in, but at this point in time, and as much as they want to say that they're not going to litigate the situation, they've driven the players to a place where they have to go to our class council and do a litigation settlement. So, it all depends on whether they want to keep playing the semantics game or actually face the music and understand that they drove the players to no longer being a bargaining unit, and now they got to deal with a class action suit. So that's where we're at right now.
Kevin, I appreciate a few minutes. Good luck with everything. I hope we have football in 2011, and thanks for everything you did for those of us who covered you when you played here in New York with the Jets, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Pete, thanks for having me. You were always one of the good ones to take care of me. But just know next time I'm on your show, my last name is spelled Mawae. You guys missed the A in my last name.
Well,
so,
you know what? That is
that.
That is the fault of a certain birdie in the back room that I'm gonna.
There's a labor situation going on over there, huh?
You know what? You know what? That dog that was barking in the background. Maybe we can get that dog, sicked on Michael Artis in the back for misspelling your name.
He's a vicious poodle. Y'all need to be careful now.
Kevin, thanks a lot. I apologize for that.
All right, guys. You guys take care. Peter, always a pleasure talking to you, man.
All right, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Bye.
All right. That's Kevin Mawae, the president of the NFL Players Association. We're going to sort out a few things and come back, hopefully, with the commissioner of the Arena Football League, Jerry Kurz. We're going to slap Michael Artis around a little bit when Schwartz on Sports continues here on Sports.com.
I'm Justin Tucker, the New York Giants, and you're watching Sports.com.
If you want everything sports, you got to go to Sports.com. That's spelled SPORTCE.com. We're going to take you behind the scenes in the world of sports and a lot more. It's sport, content, and entertainment. We got a lot of great stuff. Technology segments.
Now it's got the front and back facing cameras, so you can do video chats like this one via Skype on the 3G network, and you can do FaceTime, only available on the Wi-Fi. It's got a lot of other great features. You can edit on it with iMovie. You can make songs and voiceovers.
Behind the scenes.
We back, Sports.com, at this secret location behind the scenes. Jim Jones.
We'll take you into the lives of athletes, follow them off the field, but it's also music.
Be right here, but it's perfect day.
And other genres as well. Check us out, sports.com, and we've got live shows 5 days a week. A lot of live shows with live guests in our New York City studios. We've got Rally Nose at 7 p.m. on Thursday nights, The Warning Track, 6 p.m. on Friday nights, Schwartz on Sports with esteemed broadcaster Peter Schwartz, 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights. And on Wednesdays, it's the Music Movement with Darryl Reed. Check us out, sports.com.
Welcome back to Schwartz on Sports here on sports.com. I'm Peter Schwartz. We thank Kevin Mawae, the president of the NFL Players Association, for joining us and being the first guest on this program. We're going to be with you every Tuesday night at 8 Eastern Time, and we'll be talking to some of the top names in the world of sports. Unfortunately, we couldn't get hooked up with the commissioner of the Arena Football League, Jerry Kurz. Hopefully, we'll get him on at some point. I want to give you a little something we're going to call Pete's Perspective here to close out our programs, a little look at something that's going on in the world of sports. And obviously this week, the 2011 Major League Baseball season begins in earnest. The Philadelphia Phillies and the Boston Red Sox, picked by many to be the favorites to get to the World Series. You can't discount the Yankees and some other teams around baseball that have a legitimate shot to go all the way. And the great thing about opening day is that everybody's got a chance. Everybody starts out 0-0. There's great anticipation, even in towns where, like Pittsburgh and Kansas City, where they know they have no chance of winning the World Series. The stadiums are usually full on opening day, and there's that special moment. It's also, even though football has become the most popular sport in the United States, clearly baseball is still America's national pastime. It is something that is handed down from generation to generation. My grandfather took my father to his first baseball game. My father took me to my first baseball game, and I had a chance to take my son, along with my wife. We had a chance to take our son and our second son to their first baseball games, and that's something that you always think about when the new season opens. New season opens up. It's a chance for families to get out, families of four especially, to get out to the ballpark, enjoy a night out. But for me, April 11th isn't the most important opening day that's coming up, because that's obviously the day on Thursday when the season opens up, the games begin for real. But for me, no question about it, most important opening day is coming up on April 16th, because that is the day and my 5-year-old son Bradley gets a chance to put that Little League uniform on for the first time. And that's how you create fans. The kids get a chance to start out young, watch, learn the game, and see that interest grow and grow and grow, and then they get a chance to get on the baseball field, and you never know, you could be seeing the sports stars of the future playing right in front of your eyes. So I'm looking forward to seeing my boy Bradley put that uniform on April 16th, see what he can do. I have a suspicion he might be ahead of the learning curve on some of those other kids, but we will see what happens. Again, thanks to Kevin Mawae, the president of the NFLPA, for joining us here on Schwartz on Sports. I'm Peter Schwartz. See you next week right here on sports.com.
Welcome to sports. My name is Greg Dorman, and this is Rally Notes.
Racing fans, don't forget that on Thursdays at 7 p.m., it's time for Rally Notes. Greg Dorman, rally racing co-driver from Klein Racing, hosts guests and takes your calls about the entire automotive industry, rally racing, and auto racing in general. Rally racing is a great sport. They have Subarus and all sorts of off-road, all-wheel drive vehicles that run through the mud and the backlogging roads. But he's not only talking rally, he'll talk all sorts of racing and automobiles as well. We'll test cars, we'll drive cars, and we'll have a lot of fun. Rally Notes, 7 p.m. on Thursday. Don't miss it.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Warning Track. I'm Matt Mankiewicz.
If you could change one thing about the game today, what would it be?
Baseball fans, don't forget to check out the Warning Track Friday nights at 6 p.m. with Brett Quintine and Matt Mankiewicz. They'll take you through the MLB season, talk everything baseball, have great guests, and field your calls. It's 6 p.m. on Friday nights. Don't miss it. The Warning Track. It's out of here.